Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Massive update in the VALORANT world, especially with regard to potentially the brand new NRG roster that was maybe leaked last night. We saw a couple of weeks ago now the rumours that they were trying to get both Demon1 and Ethan from Evil Geniuses and get those two guys out of contract jail. Seems they may have succeeded with one of those two opportunities. Does that make a very competitive team? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, big news coming out of Mixwell here, legendary Counter-Strike and then VALORANT player from the Spanish scene, and he's calling it a day from competition, retiring as a professional player, wishing Mixwell the best going forwards. I'm guessing he's gonna, do content and just enjoy life maybe a little bit more than he has been able to competing. But yeah, just a legendary figure, especially when, he was on the Optic CS team back in the day. Great stuff, and yeah, wishing Mixwell the best going forward. It's definitely caused a lot of reverberation in the community, this one. Now, as we looked at in yesterday's video, Cloud9 indeed did go on to close out that tournament victory. They played up against DRX, not with their full strength team, but nonetheless with DRX in the finals. They'd beaten Edward Gaming earlier in the tournament, and sure, maybe it did feel like Cloud9 took this tournament slightly more seriously than those alternative teams did, but still, turning up here, winning a tournament of this nature is pretty impressive. Here's Oxy and Kankang, I thought was really cool. Oxy is I said it yesterday, he's a good player. People seemingly start to recognize this now. And as Vanity says, 2-1 versus DRX, won the TN Invitational, 10 Invitational, haven't had much time to practice. Proud of how we played. Vanity's mid-rounding as well I thought was especially impressive here, and he's really happy being in Korea so far. So yeah, it was 2-1 over DRX in the ends, and these were the final numbers. Whippy also played really well here. I know that Whippy's been catching a lot of flack, and I can understand it, given, the controversy of him joining the team over some alternatives, and it's not like those critics have been wiped out by a Mickey Mouse tournament victory or whatever you want to say. The season will have to begin before we start to know this, because as we saw, as Mini Jake said yesterday, look, 100 Thieves, they won that Red Bull tournament last year. They looked pretty good. They were mid when the season began. So the pressure's still on Cloud9 to prove that they actually are good when the season begins. DRX won game 1 in an overtime. Then Ascent went, I'll just go back to the normal one. Then Ascent went 13-2 actually to Cloud9. It was pretty ridiculous. And Lotus was kind of dominant as well, especially the second half, 13-9 as they made the comeback from 4-8 down. Led by Oxy here on the raise. So Fox9 and Flashback didn't have the greatest final series here compared to how they were doing earlier on. Well, actually, Flashback, especially Foxy, was pretty much their best player. So not their full strength team, but still an interesting result. And I think Flashback from their DRX prospects type roster was pretty impressive. And as Zephyr says, Leaf, Zelsis, Rudy, they were the problem. 1 week of practice, we're feeling good. So that's pretty impressive, really, that they were able to achieve this on 1 week of practice. And as Zelsis says, Mickey Mouse player winning Mickey Mouse tournaments, I'll be here when you need me to save your career again. But then he does say, Cloud9 winning champs confirmed. So yeah, maybe Cloud9 are going to be pretty good. Even if they are pretty good, will they be as good as maybe they even were briefly at points of last season? Maybe, maybe not. But, other teams I think around them here theoretically have also upgraded their teams going into the new season. And that's what we're about to see. Now, NRG, we'll discuss them in a couple of minutes. But they were linked to Stellar, and I understand why they were linked to Stellar. Stellar, coming off 100 Thieves, was one of the only legitimate IGL options remaining on the market. A lot of people said, though, look, Stellar, is he really all that? There's questions to that effect, and people are like, oh, if NRG are settling for Stellar after the Aspas thing fell through, the Surak thing as their IGL fell through. Obviously, FNS is no longer there. They can't really seem to get anyone else they wanted. Settling for Stellar wouldn't be the best look in theory, a player that's been dropped effectively by 100 Thieves. Also, Stellar goes on to play last night with the Derek Dogs, or Derek's Dogs, or whatever, and they went down 0-2 to the Young Nutters Club. So, again, not a massively... Okay, 7 was on this team, dropping 67 frags, so I guess that's probably why they lost. But yeah, this was the team they put together here. There'll be a few familiar names to you guys on these rosters, and 7 especially on the other side, who somehow goes plus 42 over 2 maps of play. So not really sure what you're meant to do against that, when he's going 35 in 15 in overtime on Haven, and then he's going at 32 in 10 on Ascent. I mean, what could he do? So yeah, maybe 7's just getting better and better, and he should be someone that people are considering considering, and hopefully they will, because this guy has been good for some time. He was on 100 Thieves a while ago, you guys will remember, and Stella, of course, was also recently on 100 Thieves, but both of those players were removed. So, yeah, interesting to see what happens there, but the fact that Stella was with this team made me think that he's probably no longer with NRG, and that seems to be the case, as we'll see in a second. The other big talking point in terms of matches from yesterday was the grand finals of, in the North American side, the Game Changers World Championship. Game Changers Season 3, and we talked about all the storylines yesterday because they were quite dramatic, with Laurie, formerly of Shopify Rebellion, going God mode in the final map of the series to beat Shopify Rebellion, knock them out of the tournament, and secure Evil Genius's Game Changers spot in the grand finals. Laurie as well, look at these results. Seconds pretty much every time. This was the time to get the job done, and that's exactly what Evil Geniuses did. I simply can't believe that of all the organizations out there to be forming these great teams, somehow it's EG, with all the controversy and all the issues and all the contract jail and like all the drama with the CEO and the treatment of their players and everything that happens with EG and the mismanagement, that they are somehow the team at VALORANT right now that is able to form these god rosters that could win champions and then also go on pretty much out of nowhere to qualify for champions in the Game Changer side as well. Now, look, we know that version 1 had less to play for. They'd already qualified for Brazil for the champions for Game Changers. If they won, they secured Shopify Rebellion a spot. And therefore there was thoughts, oh, you know, did they throw? Did they deliberately throw to let EG win to prevent Shopify from getting there? Especially when maybe EG they think are going to be less of a competitor when the actual event begins. I don't think they would have done that. I think they did try their best. But frankly, they didn't have as much to play for as EG did. So you're always going to favour the team that has more on the line. And despite Fluorescent over the series almost dropping 100 frags, Bind was 13-15 to Evil Geniuses. Then it was 13-11. So yeah, it did look like a potential reverse sweep could be on the cards after Lotus went 13-10 to V1, but then Breeze was 13-11. So crazy competitive series, really close. And yeah, EG at the end, 8-4 up in the first half, went down in the map and then won 3 in a row to take this victory 13-11. So they win the Series 3 North America Grand Finals, and that secures their spot through to the Game Changers World Championship. That also means that SR, despite having put on all their version 1 gear to try and support version 1 to win, despite the beef that those teams have had, they didn't win. So they're not going to Game Changers World Championships. Tough scenes for them. And definitely some controversy over what some perceive as match fixing, but I'm not sure there's enough evidence to really say on that. And at the end of the day, SR just needed to do a better job and beat Evil Geniuses. I don't know whether EG's Game Changers team, after making the Cinderella run to the World Championship, is now going to win the World Championship just like their men's roster did, and then they're all going to get put under contract jail, which may or may not happen. But yeah, I just can't believe how it's always EG right now that seem to be able to make these things happen despite all the drama behind the scenes. Now, there was also drama behind the scenes with Aspas. This was talked about from, and surprisingly at that, by Slasher a few months ago now, before the World Championship, where he said Aspas and Loud had serious disagreements and they would be parting ways after the World Championship. That has now proved to be the case. We don't know the full story here. We believe that it was contractual disputes with Loud more so than it was with the players, but still, Aspas wanted to go. He's decided to leave. We believe he's going to Leviathan. We think that's going to be announced in possibly 1 or 2 days' time. That was the rumour about a week or so ago, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, Loud confirmed that Aspas is gone. We think they've got this player Quick coming in as his replacement, which is, well, it's going to be tough to replace Aspas, let's just say, and Loud. I'm not sure how they intend to really improve from last season to this. Aspas was linked, though, let's not forget, to NRG. The NRG roster was touted as a potential god squad. We thought they were going to have Victor Crashies, Chet as the coach, Marved coming in from Sentinels, and then at one time they were linked to Aspas and Sadak as their 4th and 5th. That would have been a disgusting roster. They were also linked at a similar time to Demon1 and Ethan. And there was like, wow, that's crazy, but who's the caller in that situation? They were then no longer linked to those players because the belief was that Demon1 was not going to be able to go anywhere. Evil Geniuses effectively would not sell him for any price. And it seems like the same for Ethan. And as I said at the time, they might go back in, NRG, and say, look, we offered you 100 grand for both. How about 100 grand for one? Or how about this number for this player or whatever? Let's do a buyout. Let's try and make it happen. And there will be a number where evil geniuses will fold. I mean, yes, they want to lock their players down contractually. They want to kind of say, no, we're going to stick you to this buyout, and if nobody pays it, then, well, you'll stay in here, and even if they do pay it, then we'll just increase it so they can't get it anymore. Depends how the contract is set up, and then they can force the players to take pay cuts if they want to, which is, yeah, not ideal, and we've talked about the controversy around that for some time, but I did wonder whether NRG would say, all right, let's cut our losses, and we'll go back in for one of those guys. And Ethan has been on NRG before, for, you know, quite an extended period of time, right? Like, he's kind of known, almost like in my head, NRG and Ethan are kind of one and the same because they've been together in the CS days as well for a long time. So now he says, expect the expected, at the very same time that Chet, the coach, says, expect the unexpected, for real this time. So I think there's something going on here, especially when we then get this from James FF, who says, this is quite possibly the brand new roster of 5 here in the Valorant side. We know Marv, Victor Crashies, that's a known quantity. Narrate, he was linked briefly on the spreadsheet to NRG, then that kind of fell through. A pretty promising player. I think I know that some have compared him to Oxy in some respects in terms of knowing that he's pretty good, but, you know, he's not Demon1, but, you know, the gap between Narrate and Demon1 in terms of skill is probably less than the gap in terms of cost between getting Narrate and Demon1 right now. So I get it. And then they have apparently been successful in securing Ethan, if they can get this deal done, which I think does make a lot of sense. Does raise the question of who's going to lead, who's going to be the in-game leader. Is it going to be Marv? Is it going to be Ethan? My feeling is that Ethan might well want to take up the mantle here. Marv did do it for Sentinels, and they were reasonably successful at that, but not massively successful. And Ethan has, I think, had the tendencies to kind of want to eye-gel and want to improve at doing that for a little bit of time. So it'll be interesting to see what NRG do if this is their roster. No clear in-game leader, and not quite the star power they might have hoped to acquire this offseason. But given that it wasn't long ago we thought they were going to be stuck with Stella and then one other probably underwhelming player, this actually looks pretty damn good on paper. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Just a bit of Wardell versus George Geddes beef here to close out the video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.